Hello, fellow crafters. This is Yana Smakula for SimonsSTM.com. Welcome back for another Yippee for Yana video. Today I have a Valentine's Day card to share that features two of my favorite things, stamping and foiling. When you combine both of these, there is a little trick to making it all work, and I'll share that trick in this video. I will be stamping my images using this gorgeous You Have My Heart stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. It is a stunning 6x8 stamp set with beautiful imagery that can be used all year round, not just for Valentine's Day. You have image clusters in here as well as individual images to build your arrangements or dress up existing arrangements in this set. This set has coordinating dies. They are sold separately, and I think it's a very good set to have and invest into. It's very versatile, it's very fresh and on trend. The sentiments in this set are perfect for congratulatory cards and love you cards, and you have a good mix of fonts and sentiments in here. Now, while this set does have everything you'll need to make a card, I like to pull supplies from multiple sets from my projects, so I'm going to use a sentiment from a different set from Simon. This is Love Greetings Mix stamp set. This is also a large 6x8 stamp set with a multitude of beautiful sentiments for Valentine's Day, love, and affection. I quite like the heart-shaped sentiment that reads Happy Valentine's Day, Love, and I'll use that for the card that I'm sharing today. Now, I mentioned the You Have My Heart stamp set can be used all year round. Here is a Christmas card I made just recently using the imagery from this set. I simply added some Christmas foiled accents to make this into a Christmas card, and I have a step-by-step photo tutorial for this project over on my blog. Here I use the Merry Everything sentiment from the Good Cheer stamp set from Kathy Zilski. Today's card is going to be somewhat similar, but it will be a Valentine's Day project. I have some images left over from my Christmas card, and I will incorporate them into this project. I'd hate for those to go to waste, so why not use them for this card? So let's get started. I have a mini MISTI stamping tool, and I'm going to stamp this gorgeous cluster using Memento Tuxedo Black ink onto Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock. I'm not aiming for perfection, I just need a good enough impression to be able to color it. I will re-stamp the outline again later to have a very dark, crisp outline on my card. Recently, I've been using my elbow to press on the lid of my MISTI, and surprisingly, that works really well for me. My hand doesn't get tired from applying all of that pressure, and I do get great stamped results. Now I'm going to remove the panel from my MISTI, but I am keeping the stamp as is, as I will re-stamp the image outline once I'm done coloring. So I'm keeping the stamp on the lid of my MISTI, and I'm not removing or repositioning it. I'm going to color images using Copic markers, and I'm going for my go-to colors. Nothing revolutionary in terms of coloring, just the regular 3-color blends going from dark to medium to light. I'm starting with R39, darkest red, adding R27, medium red, next applying R24, light red, and blending it all out using R22, the lightest red for these flowers. I will color just these two flowers red as I do have quite a lot of red on the other leftover images, and I want this cluster to be primarily pink. I'm also using the same reds to color the berries, but I'm using just the two colors, R22 and R27. I will add a white dot onto each berry once I'm done coloring, just to add some additional interest. As for the leaves, I'm using G21, G94, and G99 colors. Here I am starting with the lightest color, and I will go to medium and dark, and then we'll come back to medium and light to blend the colors out. I'm using a flick style coloring method when coloring the leaves and simply flicking the color onto the leaves, leaving visible brush marks on the paper. I colored all of the leaves using this color combo, but now I'm using YG03 marker and coloring over the different shape leaves using this marker to liven them up a bit and give them a different shade of green. I like to use this trick lately. I just color everything using one combo, and then to differentiate some images from the rest, I use one different marker for those images instead of using a grouping of 3 markers. And the difference this provides, it's not too significant, but the colors do end up looking different enough to be able to tell them apart. For the rest of the flowers, I'm using pink markers, and those are RV14, the darkest pink, RV13, my medium pink, and RV10. Again, I am doing the flick style coloring on the flower in the center. As for the other flowers, I'm coloring following the curve of the petals, leaving the outside of the petals lightest. I'm also using RV00 marker, this is the lightest pink, to blend it all out even further. My coloring often bleeds as I'm never too careful, and I find I can easily fix that using a white pen. It is a must in my craft room, a must-have in my craft room. It's a fantastic tool for adding details, for covering up marker bleeding like I have here, and also for signing cards where the card bases are made from dark color cardstock. I replaced the panel back into my mini MISTI stamping tool. I did keep the stamp in the same position, and now I'm going to re-stamp the outline using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This ink can be used with alcohol markers, but it has to be heat set prior, and I don't always want to do that, so I have a workaround. I stamp images in Memento TUXEDO Black, I color my images, and then I re-stamp the outline with the VersaFine ink. VersaFine is the type of ink that takes a little longer to dry, and thus it works well for heat embossing. So here you can see me adding clear embossing powder onto the panel and heat setting it with my heat tool. Adding the clear embossing powder is a neat trick because it adds a beautiful shine, it adds glossiness, and it makes the dark outline even darker. It adds to the contrast of the colored image. I used a coordinating die and cut this cluster out, and now I have nearly all of my pieces ready to build the card. I just need to make a background. I love to add foiled frames to my project, and so for this card, I picked a frame from the Framed Details Glimmer Hot Foil set from Spellbinders. I have a panel of red cardstock. Now, I rarely use red cardstock for a background for my card. I find it too bold, but for this card, I think it will do fine. If you find red to be too bold of a choice, you can always go with white. I have pre-planned my image placement. I also have my sentiment in the center. And before I move on, I want to take a photo of this placement with my phone so that I can easily recreate it once I've foiled the frame and embossed the sentiment. When you want to combine heat embossing and hot foiling, you need to be mindful of the order in which you do your techniques. Because heat embossing can be reactivated by heat, meaning if you heat emboss something and then reheat it, you can mess up your embossing. So you need to do all the other heating first, and in our case, that's foiling. Foiling requires heat, so foil first, then do the heat embossing. Here I have the Spellbinders Quick Trimmer. It's a handy tool to cut foil to size and also to minimize foil waste. And I'm going to cut a piece of gold foil to the size of the glimmer plate that I plan to use. Now, looking back at this card now, I think the matte gold foil would have also looked great, and possibly even red foil would be a good option for a tone-on-tone look. Having cut my foil to size, I used washi tape and temporarily attached the foil and glimmer plate to the panel. I find this very helpful, especially when I want to foil in an exact place when the placement of the foiling matters. Here I have my glimmer hot foil system. I've added the panel with the glimmer plate and foil onto the glimmer. I added my plates and shims and pressed the timer button. It's going to flash for about 1 minute to allow the plate to get nice and hot. Now, if you follow my work, you know that I always add a paper shim to get better foiling results. But every machine is a little different, so you might not need to add a shim. If you've never foiled before, try foiling without the shim first. Now, I often get questions from people who are trying to foil for the first time, saying that they cannot get good results. And if you are one of them, if you are just learning the ropes of hot foiling, I will suggest trying various brand papers. Paper makes all the difference, and some papers foil well, while other papers always give me trouble. So test, 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 and you'll get there, I promise. Just be patient and test various types of paper. And here we are, the frame foiled perfectly. I have just a hint of overfoiling, but I can easily take care of that using a dry paintbrush. You probably cannot even tell that I have overfoiling. It's very insignificant, but it is there. It's a little bit. Next, I cut the panel out using a rectangle die from Spellbinders. This is from the Essential Rectangles set, and this is the largest frame in that set. With the hot foiling done, I won't be adding any more foiling directly to this panel. We can now heat emboss our sentiment. I'm using a mini MISTI tool again and stamping the sentiment in clear embossing ink. I did prep the panel beforehand with anti-static powder to make sure my embossing will be nice and neat. I'm using white embossing powder to heat emboss the sentiment, and having applied the powder, I'm ready to heat set it with my heat tool. I now have some leftover anti-static powder on the panel, and I can remove it using a pencil eraser. You do need to give your panel a couple of seconds to cool off, and then go ahead and erase the powder. I am being careful not to go over the foiled areas, as the eraser can remove some of the foil. And our background panel is ready. I pulled up the photo on my phone, and I'm now using it as a reference to build my composition. I'm going to use foam adhesive squares to foam mount the images to lift them on the card. I love to add dimension to my projects, and I tend to use a lot of foam adhesive. My cards are rarely flat or one layer. Having adhered the flowers, I trimmed the axis off, and now I'm stamping a sub-sentiment for this card using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Just like I did with the flower outlines, I'm going to heat set this with clear embossing ink to add some shine to the sentiment. Off camera, I went ahead and foiled several leaf branches using the glimmer plates from the Spellbinders Organic Foliage set. I foiled them in the same gold foil on red cardstock and cut them all out using a coordinating die. I want to add the foiled foliage behind the florals to dress up this card a little bit. I'm just going to play with the placement a little bit until I'm happy, and then I'll adhere the pieces in place with foam adhesive squares. As for the sentiment strip, at first I planned to have it positioned towards the bottom of the panel, but after I finished my card, it made more sense to overlap the heart sentiment in the middle, so I repositioned it. The foam adhesive I used allowed me to carefully reposition it without tearing the paper. I think I didn't press too hard, and that's why I was able to lift it up and re-adhere where I want it. I also added some gold sequins and even some white dots using my Jane Davenport and Sakura pens. These gave me different diameter dots on the paper. Now, if you don't make Valentine's Day cards, you can easily change up the theme of this project by using a different sentiment and making this into a birthday or congratulations card. That's it from me for today. I hope you found this video useful. If you make a card inspired by this video, we'd love it if you shared your project online and tagged us on social media. We always enjoy seeing what you make. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet done so. Thanks so much for joining me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.